welcome to Mamamia Out Loud. It's what women are actually talking about on Wednesday, the 3rd of September. I'm Holly Wainwright.
I'm Jessie Stevens.
I'm Amelia Lester.
But here's what's on our agenda for today.
Donald Trump's health, everyone's been thinking about that. There was a brief period this weekend where a lot of the world thought that he had died.
Yeah.
Now, he hasn't died, but the rumours around his health have not gone away, and I'm going to give you 3 reasons why.
And a sudden rise in rudeness. New research indicates retail workers are in the firing line, and we want to work out why.
And another royal fiancé is about to take the infamous Balmoral Test. Would you pass it? Spoiler alert, no. But first,
In case you missed it, the compliment sandwich is stale.
Oh.
This was a management technique that was developed in the 80s. It was meant to soften the blow of negative feedback. It's kind of like the one thing everyone knows about managing people.
Yes.
Or maybe it's just me.
That's true.
Let me give you an example of how it plays out. And this is from an article on phys.org. The compliment is the bread. Roger, your input at the client meeting was invaluable. The feedback is the meat. You've been showing up late and leaving early. It's impacting your deliverables. And then the bread again, the compliment. But that last report, you created excellent work.
And I don't, as Roger, I feel manipulated.
Yeah.
I feel as though I've not even heard either of the compliments. I
Nope.
know you just wanted to give me feedback and the other stuff was just decorative.
All Roger heard from that is you're leaving work early and it's
Yeah.
impacting your deliverables. And he ends up more resentful than if you hadn't cushioned it because he can tell that you're patronizing him.
Yeah, and
But
don't get
isn't
me
that
wrong.
Roger's problem.
Well, I mean, Roger's doing a shit job, let's be
But
clear.
he's not, though, is he? He's doing a good job, and sometimes not such a great job, and a good job.
No, but the way the compliment sandwich works, like you're told to do it regardless. So this is what I mean is that when people give me compliments like that, like they're not real. They just want to give you
This is
bad
a millennial
feedback.
thing.
No, this is the research, Holly. There is research here. And it shows that when you hear a compliment in this way, you're already bracing for the negative feedback. So you hear the first nice bit and you're like, what are you about to tell me? And then this makes employees feel more aggrieved than if you just delivered it to them straight. So shall I tell you what to do instead?
Yes, please.
What you're meant to do instead is aim for candor. Now, this is a hard word. It's hard to even really know how to get there, but I'm going to give you a couple of tips in how to be more straightforward at work. The first is practice your first line. When you're going to deliver some tough news to someone, just actually get a first line in your head because it really sets the tone.
This is my first line for Roger. Nice of you to show up today, Rog. That's passag, or is that okay?
No, it's very candid, very candid. Secondly, show you care about the person. Do you care about Roger? Probably not. Do you care about his deliverables? Yes. And end with an agreement, a plan on the way forward.
Okay. I mean, I think that's it's definitely a lot more honest. And in the past, when I've been hurt by feedback, it's because I have felt that person has been holding on to the feedback for a while.
Oh, yeah.
That's the big mistake.
Yeah, and you just think, well, now I'm embarrassed. If you just said it, then I would have just addressed it and it would have hurt at the time, but I would have moved on, right?
I'm playing a tiny violin here for managers because I've been one. I was one for a lot of years.
Did you use compliment sandwiches?
Sometimes, definitely, yes. Humans are messy and annoying, right? All of us are. So the problem with exactly what you just expressed, Jessie, is that you only hear the negative, not the positive, is really annoying for managers because the thing about all of you and me and everybody is that sometimes we're good and sometimes we're not, and we're good at some things. So all of it's true. The compliment's true, the negative bit's true, and the other compliment's true as well. But it's smart to get rid of the compliment sandwich for the reasons you've already said, that people only hear the negative ones. And they say that what you should do is you should just give real-time feedback all the time.
Yeah.
But that is really exhausting because the managers usually in most organizations also have a job to do. Yeah. It's rare that they're only managing. So they've got to be like doing their job and constantly giving you the feedback so you don't think and then we all know, working in a big group of young women, that if you're a manager and you ever say to anyone, I need to have a word with you,
Oh, my goodness.
then everybody freaks out and everybody gets upset if you put a meeting in someone's calendar. Everybody. So what are you supposed to do?
Okay,
it's a no unwinnable situation. When I was coming up in management, all that psychometric testing stuff was really hot. And that, are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? Are you an XYZ, blue, yellow, pink? And the theory was you can't manage everyone the same. You have to manage people differently because some people respond really well to direct feedback and it shuts some people down. This is all very tiring.
I'm going to make a proposal. Okay, so we can't do the compliment sandwich. What about the open-faced feedback, where you pair a difficult piece of feedback with a nice thing. That's all. Like, think of a ciabatta with some tuna on top, maybe, and some capers.
Oh, and so, like, what kind of nice thing? Like, hey,
I really like that shirt, Jessie, but what's up with your deliverables?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's just a shit sandwich with no top. It's a toasty.
It's a toasty. I like that.
And a smash burger, which is just like, Rog, for fuck's sake, it's 11 o'clock.
So really pretty aggressive chatter tonight on X, aggressive chatter on former Twitter, that President Trump might be gone.
Many have predicted that a Donald Trump 2025 health event would be the defining story of this year.
Donald Trump's death, we're going to find out once and for all in 4 minutes' time.
There is some evidence that Donald Trump is maybe dying quite fast or is not in good health. And before anyone comes at me for speculating about the health of a poor old man, I want to lay on the table that in 2020, Donald Trump posted on social media that Joe Biden had been executed and replaced by robots. Yes. So I think he's fair game to discuss. I want to point out that he's the most powerful person in the world by many metrics, and we know less about his health than just about any other president in recent history. So let me explain first why people thought he was dying this past weekend. I was actually getting my nails done, and then I was browsing the internet, and all of a sudden I noticed that everyone who I know in Washington, D.C. was saying that there was a rumor going around that he was dead.
Oh, my gosh.
And
really?
Yeah.
Like legit, like your smart journalist friends?
Yes,
wow.
Everyone was convinced. So here are the reasons why. He wasn't seen for 3 days, which is unusual for him.
Always on presidency.
He didn't have plans to go away to one of his golf courses for the long weekend, which the US just had, which is, again, very unusual for him. And then my favorite of the reasons is his vice president, J.D. Vance. He gave this really weird interview last week where he said that if a terrible tragedy were to befall his boss, he, J.D. Vance, was ready to step in. It was kind of like that internet meme where it's like, no one, J.D. Vance.
Yeah, exactly. I reckon Trump's got a shit sandwich coming for JD pretty quick.
Yeah. So overnight Australia time, we got a press conference from Trump. So we know he's not dead. He was talking about Space Force, and it was clearly a proof of life conference because no one cares about Space Force, least of all Donald Trump. But he had to show us that he was, in fact, still alive. So he isn't dead, but here are 3 reasons why Trump is still on death watch. The first, his hands have been really bruised for months.
I keep seeing this and then articles about what foundation he's using to cover them.
The wrong shade. Right. The wrong shade.
But he's never worn the right shade of foundation in his life, Amelia. Why would he start now with the hands?
You're not meant to test foundation on your hand anyway. You're meant to test on the side of your face. Maybe he went to Sephora, who knows? But the reason his press secretary is given for the bruising is that he shakes a lot of hands, and he's shaken more hands than any other president, she said, and that has led to some bruising.
Look, there's a tiny bit of legitimacy in that because Trump would definitely be one of those dudes who prides himself on a handshake. And he'd be like, I judge a man by a handshake, one of those guys. So now there'd be like a competitive
But how delicate are his hands?
Well,
the bruises are covering the hands.
It doesn't seem real to me. It
Second
sounds
reason.
like IV, don't you think? Like IV input.
That's what doctors say.
But that could also be vitamin fee. Like it could be, it doesn't mean he's dying. Like, anyway.
Second reason, his ankles are very swollen. Very swollen.
When have we seen his ankles?
All the time.
Maybe he's pregnant with a girl. My ankles were really, really, really swollen at the end of my pregnancy.
His official doctor says this is because he has a basically benign leg vein issue. But also I do need to mention that people in the Trump White House have a history of lying. Remember when we were told he had the biggest inauguration crowd of all time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the second reason. Third reason, this is a man who loves a routine. He does everything according to habit. And lately his routine has really been off. Running through a few things. He hasn't been wearing his trademark big red tie. You know the big red tie.
Yeah.
He's been wearing his big red hats in the Oval Office in the White House, and we all know that he feels very strongly about the dress code in the Oval Office.
That's right.
As Ukrainian President Zelensky discovered when he did not wear a suit there. And Trump has been avoiding the press, which is really unlike him. He loves talking. Maybe the weirdest thing of all, there was footage this weekend of some giant black rubbish bags being thrown out of a second floor window at the White House. really weird because those windows famously don't open for security reasons. Michelle Obama has complained that when she lived in the White House, she couldn't open the windows for security reasons. And now we're seeing these giant black rubbish bags being thrown out.
In them?
So he was asked about this at the press conference and he just lied. He said that this video was AI. It's not AI. It was taken on like multiple people's phones.
Oh.
So we don't know what that's about and I don't have answers on it all. But I do want to say that he's the oldest person to ever be sworn in as president. He's 79 and he eats 4 burgers and a chocolate milkshake a night. He eats 2 fillet fishes and 2 Big Macs. So I don't think this is a completely outlandish line of thinking.
Couldn't he just, because I must say, even in the press conference, and there is something within me that feels uncomfortable speculating about death, not in this context because the headlines just were unavoidable over the weekend, but you can see the glee on social media of people almost championing someone's death.
I want to stop you there for a second and say what's interesting is that there weren't headlines in the big reputable press outlets. So it's interesting to compare this to how the press covered Joe Biden's cognitive decline. That was something that we heard a lot about last year, a lot of speculation about his health. He was eventually sort of pushed to step down and not run again for president because people thought he wasn't healthy enough. And none of the big news outlets covered this whole weird death rumor that happened over the weekend.
But isn't that surely because it is just conspiracy stuff?
Yeah, but the Biden stuff was covered in a completely different way. And I don't know why that is. I think it's because we've come to expect erratic behavior from Trump. We've come to expect strangeness. The trash bags just feels like another chapter in the strangeness of this presidency.
He did seem, though, in that press conference that he did overnight, he seemed low energy. He just seemed a little bit off, and maybe that's because of what we've heard over the last few days. But could the man not just have the flu?
Yes,
that's what I kept thinking, is he's 79.
He's old. You get knocked around by a cold.
Exactly. You can get knocked around by it. He's probably not 100%, but...
He could, though, Jessie. The bruising's been happening for months. So
yeah, the bruising...
And the swollen ankles have been happening since the start of the year as well. And the fact that he's not talking to the press and sort of dialing back his commitments. I don't know. There's something weird going on.
I hate to say it. It's just a mass hopeful delusion here.
In case you missed it, actor and rapper Will Smith is on a comeback tour. And when he shared videos on Instagram from his recent performances, viewers noticed that something was a little bit off. So he's promoting his Based on a True Story tour and sharing footage with captions like, "My favourite part of tour is seeing you all up close." The only problem is that when people zoomed in on this footage of the mass crowds, they found a number of unnatural elements. So we're talking people with extra fingers, distorted faces, inconsistent hand shapes, which are all hallmarks of AI-generated content. Like even the thing that I noticed was just a blurring of faces almost into each other. It was really unusual. And there's one viral screenshot of a man holding a sign, and the sign reads, "You can make it." That's a Will Smith song. "Helped me survive cancer. Thanks, Will." And what's weird is that this man's knuckles blur into the A4 piece of paper he's holding. Even weird to hold an A4 piece of paper. The woman in front, her hand is part of the sign, and her bracelet is also someone else's headband. Look, it's just all a bit off.
It's Kate Middleton Photoshop skills.
That's what really bad. And while Smith's team hasn't confirmed it, experts think this is a result of something called upscaling, which is a type of AI enhancement where you can make something look like there are sort of more humans in the shot, and you can even make people look more excited. Smith did eventually respond a few days ago by sharing footage from a concert. And when it pans to the crowd, they're just all cats.
This is a recurrent dream I have. Like when we were on the Out Loud tour, you pan to the crowd, it's just all cats.
It's all cats. And clearly it's just like, this is AI, right? But Holly, you went back and watched the original videos. Did you notice to the naked eye that it was AI?
No, not the first time. I was just in the box like it was fun. I was like, yeah. And then when it was pointed out to me, I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But my generous take, if one should have a generous take about Will Smith, because I looked to see if ticket, because he's just done this really quite odd tour of England.
To strange places.
Like just a few dates, but like to Scarborough Beach, which is just not somewhere where generally speaking people play. But they did all sell out. So it's not like there was an embarrassing dearth of enthusiasm. But I relate. Maybe like real people are very unsatisfying in their appearance, their enthusiasm, whether or not they're holding up signs that credit you with saving their life. So
we need this. Justin Timberlake really needed this for his world
Katy
tour.
Katy Perry did. And I thought like, well, if this is possible, then I wonder if with our Out Loud tours, because, you know, a big part of publicity is to communicate your bigness. Like you need everyone to know how big and important and what a vibe you are. Like if we're in our theatre and then you just zoom out, it's Eras Tour. Like can't we just mash in the Eras Tour stadium? And then even in a podcast context, it's like, Holly, sometimes you don't laugh enough at my jokes. I'm thinking that we just dial that up by 40, 50%.
And suddenly my head is like, it hatches open like this.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Jessie.
And you've got 8 fingers, turn around, Amelia's a cat, and we're like, this is actually terrifying.
Sounds amazing.
A piece in the Sydney Morning Herald over the weekend by Jacqueline Maley asks, retail workers are copping more abuse, but why? Last week, Woolworths reported a 26% increase in violent incidents at its stores over the past year, and the Australian Retailers Association has released data that says 87% of retail workers report experiencing verbal abuse and 51% report experiencing physical abuse. The reason this caught my attention is because I've definitely noticed this unusual thing lately, which is that every time I call my doctor or my phone provider or an airline, I get a sort of an automated message telling me to be respectful and courteous, and basically if I'm not, then the call will be terminated. And that feels new. I don't feel like that was happening
and lots
5
of
years ago.
actual signs in shops.
Yes.
I see that all the time now in Bunnings and wherever you go that say, please treat our staff with respect, zero tolerance. That also feels new.
It does feel new. And I always think like, it happened in Bunnings the other day and I thought, who's yelling at this woman behind the counter? Like I've definitely noticed this as something that is suddenly everywhere. Maley offers some theories in her article. Amelia, what do you think is behind this measurable increase in general rudeness, but also towards retail workers? What's going on?
Yeah, these stats are so startling to think about how widespread it is. I worked in retail for many years ago, and I never endured this kind of abuse. Things have changed. And I think there's a couple of obvious reasons why. I mean, the world is darker now. It's scarier. We pick up our phones an estimated 205 times a day. We're clearly always distracted and stressed. And there's obviously absolutely no excuse for rudeness. But I want to put on the table that maybe part of this is not the customer's fault. It's to do with the employer. And it's to do with the way that in the pursuit of shareholder value, employers are consistently cutting corners. Their workforces are smaller than before. Workers are being forced to do more with less. And that's leading to understandable frustration on the part of customers. One interesting concept that I came across is the idea of sludge. Have you ever heard of this idea?
No.
This refers to the way that call centers in particular actually set up to frustrate us when we call them. This is a thing that companies want to do to create friction between the customer and the thing that the customer wants, which will cost them money. So some examples in an article about sludge in The Atlantic recently were Toyota in the US was found by a consumer corporation to have set up a hotline for people who wanted to access certain products and services that was actually just dead. You could never actually reach a person on this hotline that they had set up. Another example is that you might find that you get accidentally hung up on by a call center. Has that ever happened?
Yeah.
Turns out that that's sometimes not accidental. There is evidence that companies are doing this to stymie us getting what we want from them.
And then you, if you do get to a person, you are furious.
You're furious.
Exactly.
And you've also dehumanized whoever's on the other end because you've been speaking to robots.
Well, that's what I wondered about this too, is that if you think about some customer service, and again, I don't want to absolve people who are abusing workers. There's certainly not in any violent or extra, of course not. But because we have automated so much, I wonder if there's some kind of connection now in that we're used to robots being able to do these jobs. So it's almost like the person who's doing a real person who's doing a retail job, we've almost devalued their humanity because we're like, well, I can just beep past you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I also
Do you think that's a thing?
I also wonder, like, your first port of call with most businesses is a chatbot now, right? And so you go to your chatbot who you talk to. It's not very satisfying getting angry at a chatbot because you just get this blankness.
And they're rarely satisfying.
No.
They will rarely get you what you want.
Yes. And so you escalate and you escalate. And I have been in that situation. I was thinking recently about, and I have never raised my voice, lost it at some, and you need to say it to yourself. You go, don't shoot the messenger. This is not, if you're angry at the corporation, it is not this person's fault who you've ended up, imagine what that person has copped. But I remember I had an issue with an airline. It was 100% their fault. And I was so annoyed. And I got hung up on hours and hours on the phone, promises that they'd call me back, an email that got ignored, all of that. By the time you get onto the person, and that person maybe, I didn't feel like the person was empathetic or apologetic or anything like that. It wasn't the person's fault what had happened. But at that point, you can see how people's frustrations would rise to such a point that they act in a way that's incredibly antisocial and rude, which again isn't an excuse. But when something's happening on such a cultural level, there are clearly a number of factors that are contributing to it.
The other pillar in sludge is actually that workers are not empowered to do anything about complaints. And they're actually told to try and prevent you from reaching up the tree of power to get to someone who can actually do something for you.
And sometimes acknowledging, like they're not even allowed to acknowledge.
They're not allowed.
Fault, which is a trap for them, which I think as well with even if you're in your supermarket. And the number one contributing factor to sort of incivility is stress. And so cost of living, all of those things. If you walk into your local shopping centre, you're struck by how expensive things are, you feel manipulated, you feel hard done by, and your only connection to that brand, which you can tell, and even with the airline thing, I'm going, I know how much profit you made. Like in my head, I'm thinking that, and I'm going, you actually don't care if I'm a customer or not. Like the way that you're being treated, I think it's then like the front line of that business are these often young, casual employees, might be their first job, and then they're copying it.
Well, that's the problem because all these things are very valid, reasons, and they're saying that obviously COVID played a part in this too, and the suspicion and distrust that was seeded around that. I also wonder if now, because we're so used to researching and buying on our phones, we almost also have a really high level of expectation of customer service in a way, in a place where we're like, why can't you give me 25 options about all the things? I bet doctors deal with this all the time, for example, health professionals, where people walk into their surgeries or clinics and they're like, well, I've already Googled and I know the 25 things that are wrong with me, so what do you know? You know what I mean? I think that's an element too. But whatever the causes are, as Amelia writes in that column, the facts are that retail workers skew female and young, right, overwhelmingly. And she writes at the end, which is something I can relate to and very much agree with, that what's a real shame about this is often where people do their first jobs. Not entirely. It's not at all correct that retail workers are sort of part-time teenage jobs. They're often female jobs because they're flexible. And you can get different time shifts and all those kind of things. But for young people, it's often their first port of call for employment and dealing with people. And it's always been thought that it's an excellent experience, which I very much agree with. My daughter has a job like this, in that they learn quickly what's expected of them, how to deal with difficult people, all of those things, and that's great. But that if this incivility continues to rise and rise, that will be something that people don't want their kids to do. So they'll pull them out of that if they can afford to, which is a loss in itself. But also it's giving a whole lot of people a very skewed idea in a way of what the world is like, because you're dealing all the time with a level of stress and abuse. Or maybe you're not. Maybe you're giving them an accurate, brutal picture of what the world is like, but having to deal all the time with really stressed out people. I have to say, where I live in a small town, and I think that regional shopping experiences are really different. I know all the people who work in the shops near me. They all know each other's names. And it's interesting because the kids I know who work in those kind of shops, they can tell the difference immediately between like local people and tourists in the way they speak to them, which is not, I'm not like I don't mean to be like city country divide on that, but there's like what I mean about that is about the humanization piece. Like you speak differently to somebody who
you see every day.
You kind of know a little bit or you can relate to in some way or whatever, which is our own prejudices, of course, than you do if it's just like this is I'm never going to see you again. I don't care about this exchange. I just need what I want and I need it now.
Well, and also small businesses have different kinds of imperatives to these large corporations we're talking about. I wanted to suggest there are two ways to counteract the sludge with the corporations, which is really what the sludge concept refers to. The first is this idea of having an admin night. You get together friends that you don't see often enough and you all make the calls that you've been putting off to the insurance company, to the telecom company, to the electricity people.
Wow, that's interesting.
You have some drinks and you just take your time on the whole thing.
So you make it like a positive experience.
Exactly.
And then you can bitch to each other as well rather than the person
on the other end.
And the other
genius,
one,
Amelia.
well, the other one's my personal life hack, which I'm loath to even share, but it really has changed things for me. When I am battling a large corporation, which unfortunately happens more often than you might want, instead of fighting with someone who has not been given any power to change things for me or get me what I want, I go to the people who actually have the power. So I Google who's in charge, who's the chief customer officer, who's the person who actually needs to report to the powerful people about how they're treating customers, and I write them an email.
Does it work?
It's sort of a weaponized Karenization.
I was going to say, I
it.
didn't want to raise the K word because people get very upset when we do, but there's a little rise of a Karen there.
Yeah.
No, I'm not knocking it.
No. There's an example of it. Well, I mean, listen, the way that we're being treated by big corporations, we have to be able to fight back. And one example is a big corporation was meant to come and install a dishwasher for me, full of like very boring things that happened along the way that made me waste 2 days of my life waiting for this dishwasher, and the dishwasher was still not there. So I emailed the chief customer officer, and then the very next day someone came, installed the dishwasher, and I was not charged for the installation.
I found the COVID argument interesting because I read this research that said that epidemics all throughout history have contributed to a coarsening of society. So it changes society, not for a year, not for 2 years, but for a really long time. And they said that there's decades of social damage from each pandemic, and then it's often inherited from kids, whether that's a distrust of authority or institutions or feeling like you were forced to do something you didn't want to, the isolation, the anxiety, that I think has changed us. And so even though I don't think COVID is the whole story, I think that explains why it also appears to be a global phenomenon, because there are reports like this all over the world.
Do not unpack your own bags. Only drink from one side of your glass. Stop eating as soon as the host has stopped eating. And whatever you do, do not put the milk in first. Right now, a 45-year-old English nurse is being tested by her future in-laws about whether she can hack royal life. You know who I'm talking about, don't you?
Oh, that lady you talked about the other week.
Yes. She is Harriet Sperling, and she is the fiancée of Princess Anne's son, Peter Phillips. Now, he's not a prince. He could be, but Princess Anne famously said, nah, fancy titles, not for my kids. And this is Peter's second marriage, and they're like her kids are generally credited with being pretty normal. I mean, they're not that normal. His first wedding was subject to a 400-page spread and hello, but they're quite normal. Anyway, he and Harriet got engaged earlier this year, and he's taken her up to Balmoral for the summer. Now, if you don't know what Balmoral is, or you do, but you know vaguely, it's where the royals summer. You know how fancy people, they don't go on holiday, they summer.
Yeah.
They summer.
Is there a nice body of water there?
Well, I've obviously never been because who's inviting me, but it is famously stunning. It was the Queen's favourite place. In fact, she died there. So
is it near the Cotswolds?
God, no, it's in Scotland.
But I bet it rains a lot, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, so this isn't summer like lying around by a pool in a bikini. This is not that summer. In fact,
it's not the Hamptons.
God, no. It's like, so the royals.
Is there rosé at least?
I should doubt it.
Aperol?
I don't think so. Because
summer sounds
really
terrible.
not, because this is the thing, is the royals
Royals don't have
That
Aperol
would be so
spritzers.
funny if they did. I love that. I hope that Harriet is asking for one right now. Because so they summer there, which means they go in late July, apparently. They stay till September. And all of the senior royals and junior royals and some world leaders and some important people are expected to turn up for a portion of the time.
Okay.
Which is annoying if you're a young royal and you'd rather be on a yacht in Saint-Tropez. But these days, they'll probably go and do their yacht in Saint-Tropez and then they have to turn up to Balmoral for a few days. Prince Harry is very gushing about Balmoral in his book. It's obviously a very special private place for them, right? Anyway, all that sounds lovely. But there is a thing called the Balmoral Test. It was the title of a Crown episode in one of the late seasons. Yeah. Because if you are entering the royal family, you get taken there for the first time for your summer weekend. Obviously used to be with Queen Elizabeth, now with the King and Camilla. You get taken there and it's like any family, there are weird traditions. But in British aristocracy, and particularly at this level, there is so much unspoken etiquette that you have to know.
So, was Meghan subject to the Balmoral Test?
She was, and apparently Princess Diana passed with flying colours, and it was one of the big reasons why the rest of the family was very happy for her to marry in, which we all know how that ended. Catherine passed with flying colours. Apparently Fergie did not. Fergie did not go well. World leaders go. Apparently Margaret Thatcher failed massively. With that kind of stuff. Meghan went, and I think that broadly there isn't a lot of detail, including in Harry's book, about exactly how that went. But when I'm about to tell you what I'm about to tell you, I think we can all guess, right? I want you to think about what you'd pack in a weekend bag if you knew that someone else was unpacking and putting away all your clothes. Like you would, for example, you'd probably buy all new knickers, wouldn't you?
And some new socks because I don't think holes are cutting it. And with all the rain there, I need some proper wool socks.
Yeah. So it's very uncool to unpack your bag. So the valet will do that for you. So you take your case and you leave it with them. So when you're packing, just think about that because they talk.
And this is going to be a packing situation, I'm just thinking, where you probably need to change for dinner, right? So
you definitely need to change for dinner. So formal wear for dinner, right? Doesn't have to be soup. There'll be probably a ball or two while you're there. There's infamously a very big ball at the end of the summer.
So I need a ball gown for my weekend?
You do, maybe with a tartan sash.
Jeans okay when I'm going on a ramble?
Apparently jeans are okay these days. A tartan skirt is preferred. And sensible, hefty shoes, but jeans are okay.
I literally wheezed when you said tartan skirt.
So what if no tracky pants, no soft pants, Amelia? Your soft pants are not welcome.
I know Meghan bought a pair of elevated sweatpants.
She definitely would.
If I wanted to go for a morning walk or to do perhaps a spot of morning Pilates, could I bring my workout clothes?
Can you imagine, and I'm sorry to channel Mia now, but I'm going to, can you imagine bumping into Camilla? Well, maybe Camilla might be down with it, but can you imagine bumping into Princess Catherine in the hallway with your camel toe out? Jessie.
Well, I'm doing my exercise.
No, keep that to yourself.
Okay.
Although actually in Spare, Harry talks about how you would have to be careful opening his dad's door because he was often doing a yoga headstand against it. That was apparently one of the details that was seen as
was he doing it in a kilt?
Maybe naked, who knows? That was one of the details that was seen as particularly traitorous to share. So Pilates is okay, but in your own...
In my room with the door locked.
In your own room.
In tweed.
Must like dogs because there'll be millions of them, but must not object to shooting other animals. That is an important part of your weekend.
So you can't just be in the background going...
No, you've got to shoot deer, stag,
No, but come
whatever.
on, there's some flexibility here
Ducks.
because Princess Kate is famously allergic to horses.
Yes.
And so I'm sure that she's permitted to not have to go near horses for the weekend.
That a great excuse to not have to go and shove your head in a dead
conspiracy
stag.
theory.
Yeah, because that's what Harry talks about that in his book. He says that when he shot his first stag, it was like a rite of passage, and that one of the aides who took him out there, he had to shove his face in the guts of the stag and get the blood all over your face, and then you're not allowed to wash it for the rest of the day. They're weird. These people are out there.
Disgusting.
Anyway,
I thought my
digress.
in-laws were weird.
Back to this. When you sit down for dinner, so for a starter, and this will be very tricky for both of you, no diamonds before 6, okay? If you've got your jewellery with you, you cannot wear it before 6, but you can wear it after 6.
Okay. Yep.
No tiara to that ball we mentioned unless you're married. So Harriet I'm sure she has a bag full of tiaras. She's like,
Not yet, Harriet.
Only married ladies are allowed to wear tiaras.
Are heels vulgar, like at the dinner? Like, what are we thinking is the vibe?
High heels are vulgar. So apparently
Kitten heel.
every dinner is formal. And for the women, that preferably means a skirt and stockings. Infamously, even this week, Megan spoke on a podcast about how she had to wear stockings, like pantyhose.
I hate a stocking.
Yeah, but it doesn't. But too dressy uppy is not great. So not like sky high heels and like a
not a bandage
like
dress,
not that kind of thing.
Do you think we get to wear
But
like a statement eye with an eyelash strip or not?
I think what you're probably not allowed to do is call down and say, "Where's my glam squad at?" You're probably not allowed to say that. All right. You probably won't be making your own tea, let's be honest. But if you were, never, ever, ever put the milk in first.
Yeah, what's wrong with that? You said that before.
So it's an infamous British snobbery thing, and there's debate about this, but there's famously, Evelyn Waugh wrote about this. He said nannies and governesses will put the milk in first to tea, right? But anyone from the drawing room above, so like above stairs, the posh people think that's very de rigueur, and in fact, not de rigueur, the opposite, very much a faux pas, and that apparently milk in first, or MIF, is code for common. So you might say, for example, and the Queen apparently, God rest her soul, was one of the, like, she's a bit MIF, isn't she?
I've got a question. Coffee, because I need coffee in
I'd
the
like
morning.
a barista made with an oat milk.
I've gone deep on this because
Okay.
wouldn't we all?
Is there a
There
barista?
is so Balmoral is open to the public for a large part of the year because it's so fancy and it's so enormous. And at that time, they do have baristas on staff, like that you can go into the, like the gift shop and have a little sandwich and a scone, and you can have a freshly made coffee. But the chefs who've worked at Balmoral say that there is no barista who is. So I think that probably someone could rustle you up a coffee, but you probably don't want to be the person who's asking.
And it might be instant coffee.
Exactly. Oh dear, it probably would be. Yeah. I want to ask you what you think about the table etiquette, right? So, apparently, you walk into even on a non-formalish evening, you have to enter the dining room in succession order, which means that Peter and Harriet are 19th in line if everyone's there. But let's face
There's
it,
going to be no potatoes left.
Harry's not there, so he's probably further to the front of the queue than that. But you have to enter in succession order.
You got to line up for dinner.
You have to walk in. And then it's not a buffet. That would be weird. But buffets are very common.
Assigned seating?
Assigned seating, absolutely. And I didn't know this, but maybe you did, Amelia, because I'm sure you go to fancier dinners than me. The rules is that you speak to the person on your – so you're not allowed to talk across the table. So say you're King Charles and I'm Harriet, who's like trying to make a good impression on my uncle. I'm hoping that's going to do well for me somewhere. I can't just go, so, Charlie, how was the deer killing today? Although I don't know that he's that into that. You must not talk across the table and you must never instigate conversation with the monarch. You have to wait to be asked.
That's interesting.
So you talk to people on your left and right. But the bit I wanted to know if you knew is apparently during the first course, you speak to the person on your left.
Oh, wow.
And during the second course, you speak to the person on your right.
I did not know that. The only thing I know about dinner party etiquette is the Larry David line about middling. Like you've got to be a good middle at a dinner party. So if you're in between two people, you're a middle and you got to step up the conversation.
Oh, let's hope Harriet's a good middle. Only ever I said only ever drink from one side of your glass or cup. This is
what does that mean?
This is actually a good tip, right? Because you know how you get lipstick marks on things?
Yeah.
And they say, like, we can't help that. We're human. And even mouth marks. But lipstick marks and mouth marks are very uncool, right? Like they're uncool.
Okay.
But they're accepted because you've got to be dressed up. So you just have to keep putting your lip in exactly the same
I
place.
wasn't going to start sipping from the opposite rim.
But you might, because you might next time you pick it up, and then the next time you pick it up, and then the next time, and then you've got them all the way around. That's common.
Do you think I could ask for a paper straw? That would help
Jessie
with the glasses.
famously only likes drinking through a straw. So she'd be
like a straw.
Can I have a straw? And they'd be like, no.
And I'd be like, can I have a chilled can of Diet Coke, please?
Pinky finger in, not out.
Ah.
Out is bad. In
Okay.
is good. And apparently, as I say, do not engage with the king under any circumstances unless he talks to you. Talk quietly. Never eat with your fingers unless it's oysters or afternoon tea. Do you feel prepared? Could you now go to
Talk
Balmoral?
quietly.
Yes.
But what if I'm telling a great story?
And they're all
I must all
old. They
talk
can't
like
hear
this.
anything.
You must not laugh too loudly.
How do I ask for the bathroom?
Well, ideally you shouldn't, but apparently what you should do if you're at the table and you suddenly need to go,
Yeah.
lactose, whatever,
Yeah.
then you just say, excuse me, and you go, but you must not under any circumstances say, I'm going to the
I'm
toilet.
going to pee.
I got to wee.
And you shouldn't ever say toilet. You can say lavatory. Loo would be acceptable, but never toilet. Never say toilet.
See, I reckon that all of us have done the Balmoral Test to some degree when we have tried to assimilate into the culture of a new family very quickly, because you walk in, and I'm thinking with a potential partner,
That's so true.
where you just scan and you go, okay, how do I not make a faux pas here? And a friend of mine said that she was at a potential partner's house and washed her hands in the kitchen sink and used the display tea towel to wipe them.
What's a display tea towel?
It's like an ironed fancy tea towel that is not to actually be used.
I
Like
love
it's
that so
it's
much.
decorative. And everyone was like, oh no, you've completely screwed it. When I went to Luca's family home for the first time, I coughed. And you would know that in a house, I'm sure Mia won't mind me calling her a crazy germaphobe. They just very serious about germs. And I coughed. I would have coughed into my hand, I think, and then probably, opened the fridge and touched what I could.
On Mia's face.
Sorry, do you have a display tea towel for my hand? And definitely a faux pas. But I think we do that. I can never work out. I still don't know in Mia's house if we're shoes off. I think she's screwing with me because every second time she has her shoes off and then she has her shoes on. And I'm like, do I take my shoes off?
Holly, did you face any – Brent's from New Zealand, right?
He's from New Zealand.
Did you face
yeah.
any New Zealand customs?
No, I didn't really, because he didn't. He did, we were all so old that the first time I went to his mum's house. Actually, I know I've told you this before, but Brent's mum was a psychic. So she would read you when you walked in, and I would just be like, oh my God, what
energy am I giving off?
You know, but every family does have its really weird little cultures, and you don't realize when you're a parent that you're building them too, right?
That's true.
I remember that a partner of my brother's once came round to dinner and she was helping clear up, which, by the way, Balmoral rules, never do that. Never offer to help and clear. Apparently it's disrespectful to the staff. But we didn't have any staff. So it wasn't disrespectful to anyone, except that there was a third of a bottle of wine left in the wine at the table.
Yeah.
And she tipped it down the sink because she was like, well, obviously that's going off if we save it. And my mum nearly had a conniption.
I'm sorry, the notion of wine going off. Bring me your freshest wine, as Steve Martin once said.
My mum was just like, her jaw just dropped and she was like, what are you doing?
I'm with your mum on this. I'm sorry.
Luca coming into my family, he thinks a social event is complete after 90 minutes.
Yeah, that's
and so
true.
he tries to exit and goes, all right, the food's finished, let's go. And I'm like, this is a multi-day event. We have only just begun. Sit down, have another drink. And he's like, I opt out of this family. This is far too intense.
When I had my first Christmas with my partner, it was only our third date, so the stakes were quite high. I brought my parents. He had his family there.
High level of difficulty.
High
Third
level of
date.
difficulty. Two things went wrong. The first thing is that after dinner, his family are all very competitive and they play charades.
Yeah.
And my family would sooner do literally anything than participate in organised games. So that was...
There are games families and not games
That's
families.
so
Exactly,
true.
Yeah.
exactly. And then the second thing was his aunt is famously very blunt, and I did not. They're a bit more formal in some ways than my family, and I did not wear the right thing to Christmas dinner. I wore a long white sleeve T-shirt that I thought was very chic, very Carolyn Bassett Kennedy.
Yeah.
Apparently it was giving activewear, and she looked at me up and down and she said, well, at least the boots are elegant.
Oh!
Which I actually have to say is a great line. So now we say that to each other.
Holly, do the Royals, they're a games family, aren't they?
Well, they are, but apparently Monopoly is banned at Balmoral because they get too competitive. It's caused too many problems. So,
It's too close to home because they really do own
yeah, exactly.
those
They're like,
things.
what do you mean I have to buy Mayfair all over again? Like, no, I'm not doing that. So, yeah, no, they are. And at Christmas, famously, although that's not at Balmoral, that's at Sandringham down south, you get weighed before and after dinner to make sure you've had enough fun. Yeah, apparently that went down really well with Princess Diana, as you can imagine. Thank you for being with us this Wednesday. We appreciate all of you so much. Actually, I'm a little bit royal because I don't like it when people leave the bag in the tea. And
Yeah, true.
the king wouldn't like that.